Just a brief, so Unitex have been around for 35 years. The original two owners, Andrew Concannon, who's an industrial chemist. Yes, no worries. Industrial chemist, and we've got Tony Gubbiani, who's an Italian renderer. So a partnership that's lasted 35 years, I think, which is amazing in business. So these guys started it in Melbourne. So Unitex are a lightweight supply company. So we do architectural mouldings, lightweight cladding systems, renders, textures, external coatings. We deal in the residential space, in the commercial space, basically anything on the external facades. We believe we're the experts in it. First thing we'll talk about is our certification. With the Docklands fire and the Grenfell fire in London, there's been more of an emphasis on certification, particularly around lightweight. The aluminium composite systems have been hit pretty hard with it, but it's also brought it in with anything lightweight, like EPS, polyurethane, all these type of materials now. It's called for extra testing. So certification, particularly at the designing stage, where you guys are at, is crucial. On a lot of plans that we see, if we've got lightweight cladding or polystyrene on the upper floor levels, a lot of the time when it's specified, it'll have written EPS panels and coatings by others. With the building certifiers now, there's more emphasis on a code mark accredited systems. So Unitex have a code mark on our product, a conformity certificate from SI Global, and also we've got a brands accreditation. So that means when it's specified all the way, the homeowners can get insurance on their property, and also that it's working to the Building Code of Australia. What goes on site is obviously when you're drawing the pictures and it comes to site, a lot of things change, and we find that a lot of contractors will dumb down the systems when it goes on the wall for a price point. So, for instance, if we have a bag of render that's high in acrylic that we're going to put over blueboard because we don't want it to crack on the joints, it's really a 4-coat system. But sometimes if it gets to site with the wrong applicators, they'll use whatever bag of render that they want. When it's painted, it looks great, and then 2 years down the track, every time it rains, it's cracking. So the certification covers the certifier, but also at design stage as well. It's really, really important that we're specific with our specification and the directions on the plan. So there are now, I think it just came to light today that there's been a number of, in lieu of the fires and the latest commission, that there's now been a number of these lightweight cladding systems pulled off the market and not certified. So it's very important that we're checking out what we're actually getting on the walls. Yep. So the Unitex offer to the market is a full system offer. So it's not a product, it's a system. So we have systems that go over Hebel, that go over off-form concrete, fibre cement, EPS, different substrates, anything lightweight. We believe we've got the solution for you guys, from the panels all the way through to the final coat of membrane paint, should that be the desired finish. We have a lightweight system. I'm not sure if, well, most people would be familiar with EPS cladding in Australia. We've got a Unitex system, the baseboard system. So it's from the wall frame all the way out to the last coat of membrane. So it starts off at the wall frame with our wrap. We have our cavity spacers that fit over the studs. We have flashing tape around all of the exterior penetrations. And then we fit our EPS panels. Our EPS panels are coated with an acrylic render on the outside. Like Shawnee, we have got one over there. If Shawnee, you want to pass that around. It's just a little mock-up of how the system works. So we've got an EPS SL grade panel. Okay, it's fitted with it's actually got one coat of render already on it and mesh embedded into those panels. And it's got a crisscross texture on the front of it, which is a 3.5mm build. So what that does is it dictates when the render goes on how thick that is over the panel, and also it's quite strong. So impact resistant, it's very, very strong, and it's stronger than fibre cement when the full system is applied. So once we put our panels on, okay, you can see on the slide we've got our lightweight panels fitted here with a little PVC button and a screw. Fits directly through the cavity spacer into the frame, and then we've got our window sills, and that's made out of that material. It's like a 15 mil fibre cement, 15 mil lightweight concrete. Light enough for one person to be able to hang on to it and fit it. So they fit our sills with our fall and our baseboard block along the bottom. So the system is up to BAL 40 rated. So it's 12.5, 29, and then we've got a BAL 40 system as well for the bushfire attack levels. After we fit the panels, it's just another picture of how the panels are fitted. The next stage of the system is we mesh with 250 mil alkaline resistant mesh over all the joins with a polymer render. We patch all the holes where the washers are, and that leads us on to the next slide. Okay, then we render over the whole substrate from there. With our render, we've got a baseboard render that's specific for EPS. It's a high build, it's quite forgiving. You can build it out, and when it's finished, it dries, like I said, it dries like very hard. It's probably one of the most common questions we get with particularly EPS is, will the cricket ball go through it? Will the kids' bikes hit it? And the answer is no, it's very strong. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, when we started using these systems, it was sand and cement render, so it was quite soft. And it was a bit of trial and error in Australia for a number of years. The last 5 or 6 years, on the back of the certification and more testing, the systems have evolved. So that's at base coat stage. We flick on to the next slide. We then put a texture over the top. The textures, different textures for different designs. The Sydney market seems to be quite a sand cement, quite a smooth type finish. When we go into Victoria and South Australia, it's more of a coarser finish. And now we're seeing, like we're going to demonstrate tonight, we're seeing another movement away with these polished concrete type looks, which seem to be the bit of a flavour of the moment, both internally and externally. So that's a textured finish, a standard, and that's a finished home. So one of the biggest bugbears we've got in the industry, if you talk to anyone, is, and I'm sure there's a bricklayer in here, there always is, but everyone hates dealing with bricklayers at the moment. I was on the Central Coast the other week, and they were saying it's up to $3 a brick laid at the moment because of the lack of skilled trades. Now, it's not as bad. In Sydney, it's still quite healthy, but there's not a lot of apprentices coming through. So we're seeing the evolution of the rendered facades with alternate cladding systems. Obviously there's a movement. The silver bullet with all lightweight is to have a fire-rated lightweight system to eliminate concrete from all of our buildings, or brickwork from all of our buildings. So everyone's working to it, but it comes to a price point as well. I think we've had cool therm products. We've had there's some Bondor products out there as well that have got a fire rating, but when you're up around that $250 a square metre mark, are you better off with rendered brick or precast becomes a much of a muchness. So we're kind of not there with fire rated products, totally fire rated at the moment. Actually, probably Hebel's the closest that we've got. I think it's a fantastic product. I really like it, but it kind of gets a bad rap as well. When the correct coating systems are used over Hebel or ASC products, I think it's a killer of a system. It's fantastic, but it's when we take shortcuts with the coatings and try and save money, it all falls down and then kind of gets shoved back to Hebel and say, well, it's a shit ass product and it doesn't work. So the next slide. Just the last one on the EPS on our baseboard system. It really comes into its own over roof areas. It really does. And I remember when I first got into it, I'm a carpenter. My father-in-law owned polystyrene. He made broccoli boxes in the Sunraysia area. And he said one day, he didn't like me either from the start, but he said one day they'll be building fucking houses out of foam. And I remember laughing at him and said, oh, you know, that it had never happened. And now I live in a house. It's clad upstairs in polystyrene, and it's a fantastic product, and it does work. So over roof areas, as you can see, once we get the frame up, the flashing on, once the lid goes on and the window's in, we can attack it straight away and clad it, and then we can be working inside. So from a building perspective too, it's an excellent system and a good product, so we can keep the build moving. We're not having to wait. It sucks a lot of the moisture out of the render. So if you go and put a sand, like a masonry or a brick render over the top of Hebel, it sucks the life out of it and it'll delaminate. So every render that we make for each substrate is obviously tailor-made. The next one is for AAC panel. What we've seen in the last, how many years now, Ryan, have they been bringing in Chinese-made AAC? About 5 or 6 years. The last 2 years, obviously CSR Hebel is made at Summersby. It's been around for probably, how many years? A long time, probably 20, 30 years now. I think it's been around for like 90 years since, I think it was after World War I. So it's a great grandfather. Hebel's been around for a long time. Hebel primarily comes in 75mm. What we're seeing is imported AAC from China in 50mm panels, and it's laid in a brick pattern. It's right out there now. It's, like I said, it's a good product, but again, because it's 50mm and it's got different qualities than the CSR Hebel, we mesh the entire wall area in our coating specification. So if you're specifying CSR Hebel in 75mm panels, they're laid upright. The 50mm at the moment is in a brick pattern, so the coating system must be horses for courses. So we put our aero render over the top, lay the mesh in, have another leveling coat, and then we do a texture coat. So there's an extra coat with the 50mm. So the price point is not much different when you're looking at the extra coat of render in the labour. Okay, for a normal masonry render, we have a beach or a ready render that just goes straight over the top. In Queensland, we find that they do sponge finish their render and apply 2 coats of paint. Obviously, with our renders out of the bag, we don't need to prime it like a sand and cement. So yeah, straight over the top. Give it 48 hours and then hit it with our texture coat over the top for our crack bridging. Next one. I hate this stuff, but it continues to pop its head up. Fantastic over the top of doors or up the sides where you've got about 100mm and there's no joins, but on wall areas it's a freaking nightmare for us. Every time it rains, we stand next to the CSR rep or the Hardy's rep and basically haven't got much to say other than it's shit. But we do see it. The best way to deal with it is to mesh the joins with a polymer render. With a 50mm mesh. Then we skim out the entire area with a polymer render out of the bucket. We have got a dry texture as well at Unitex, but I personally prefer out of the bucket. It goes over the total substrate and then we texture over the top. I strongly suggest when we're designing it to have light colours. As soon as we go dark on blue board, it just pops. It just comes out as soon as it gets wet. So we've got the best systems on the market, but if it's not painted correctly or if it's not installed correctly, it can be a hindrance for us. Just a couple of little designs. You can see the window surrounds there. They're actually EPS panels, 600mm wide. They've got a slight fall at the top, and they're fixed directly to the face of the building from one of our builders. Basically just a glorified rectangle that looks pretty cool. So the EPS panels, 4 metres long, 600mm wide. They're fixed directly to the frame with a steel spriget that's fixed to the studs. It comes out, and basically they just glue and fit on and lock into that locking system to give that look. We could do it with windows as well. You see a lot of it with sun hoods and decorative blades and fins. It's a really good, cost-effective option for the designer and the homeowner as well. Our decorative mouldings, not everyone's cup of tea by any stroke, but we have seen we've seen a lot more of the French provincial look hit Sydney in the last 18 months, which is great for sales for us in Sydney. It's been chugging along in Melbourne, but we're seeing it in the other states as well, where we are getting those decorative Victorian type mouldings have made a bit of a comeback. We specialise in those. I'll send a couple of samples around for you to have a look at. If it's a commercial build, we don't have the foam inserts because we can't have any combustibility now with the new with the new laws. So we either have a void or they'll be solids if we're fitted if it's got to be fire rated. For residential, we have a foam core in the middle, and then we have a 15 mil of lightweight concrete. Just quickly before we do want to rev up and start getting ready for that. This is pretty sick actually. This is a place in the Beau Morris Hotel. It was falling apart and it became heritage listed. It's kind of got knocked down and was falling apart, and we were given the job to fix it basically. But we were only given this picture to work with to reenact and basically make from scratch all the mouldings on this job. And the next slide is how it finished up, and it's pretty cool. I really like it. It was about $500,000 worth of mouldings on that job alone. Yeah, straight off a photograph, so there's no drawings. So the expertise that Unitex have with the guys that design it, but also able to make it happen is pretty outstanding, and we're very proud of that. The last slides that we've got, and which Ryan's going to do now, is our Tanami or our Unirock. This can be used, so Ryan's going to apply it. So what we've done, we've just put polymer render over a bit of blue board. He's done a couple of coats tonight. So what we wanted to show was the different finishes that we can get with a skim coat and obviously with this stuff. So Ryan will put it on.
So Tony, you picked your favourite substrate.
It was on the job site actually. Kind of winged it. We could have done the phone, but it was we thought for ease we'd use this. So what we're seeing it used for is in bathrooms. We can have a matte finish like on the external of the building. Our Unirock goes over masonry. It can go over blue board. It can go over polystyrene. It can go over Hebel. So on the outside of the building, we can have that a tilt panel quite look. But then what we're seeing now is that we're having ceilings like here. We're having feature walls and feature ceilings with it. Now, internally, it goes straight over plasterboard. And the more coats that you can put on it, so Ryan's hitting it with a third coat at the moment, but if you hit it with 3 or 4 coats, you can put beeswax on it and you get a mirrored finish. And it's quite inexpensive. You're looking at probably between $220 and $300 a square metre for the finished product on the wall. And you've got all our different colours. You've got reds, you've got the light concrete like an off form like that. We've got a darker one. So it's on our website, the different colours that we've got. But hugely popular. It's been big in Melbourne for a few years, but Sydney in the last probably 6 to 12 months, we've really seen it take off.
And do you need a wax coating on it, or can you leave it?
If it's on the external, a matte finish, it shows up a little bit too much on the external. If it's on a couple of columns or a bulkhead at the front on the entrance, then we're going to take it through the inside. It looks really good, but it looks shit hot on the inside with a mirrored finish, particularly ceiling. I think the ceilings look really good if you get it right. Behind TVs, it's not a you don't like seeing DIYs, but when it's done properly, it's quite a really good finish. What happens the more you hit it with a trowel, the more little lines and imperfections that you get, and it's really in the eye of the beholder. So different. If Ryan was working with another guy on a wall, you can really see the different personalities or who's bludgeon or who's hit it more or whatever. You can see the difference. So it's quite an art to putting it on.
I'm from Empower Construction. We're innovative wall solutions from design to completion. So what is that? Basically the company started, if I give you an overview, 11 years ago, which is at the back of a ute. We started in brickwork and then moved on to AAC, what Tony spoke about, which was Hebel, lightweight panels, aerated concrete. And then from there we just slowly grew. We started with that, then render, and then paint, and then cladding, and a range of other products with that. And over time, with experience, we just kept growing and growing, and did the right work, as Tony was saying, with the right applicators. And now, 11 years later, we're in Sydney, we're in Melbourne, and yeah, up to Newcastle, down to Wollongong, like I said, as far as Anna Bay, Nelson's Bay. So yeah, we've just grown over the years, which has been a good thing for the company. I've got Bryn here, one of my operations manager. I may get him to say something. We'll see how we go. But what do we offer? Planning, scheduling, execution. One of the jobs that Tony was showing before is actually up there. That's Sunland Developments. It's a project that him and I worked on about 6 years ago. Yeah. So about us. First, basically, we product select and specification, compliance, workflow, management, and budgets. Now, when I say that, we go and we work with the builder. So if the builder's got a design that he wants, we can then suggest the products that we should be using, along with the supplier, the manufacturers, and we basically say, okay, this will comply here, that will comply there. You still have to do your research, you still have to make sure that's right, but we do have a wealth of knowledge in that, and a lot of people in our team who can help out with that. It also helps reduce costs and like you say, hit budget. And I'm sure in a market that we're in now, everyone wants to hit budget, you know. Yeah. From there, we then start scheduling. There's always going to be challenges and problems. And like Bryn said, the biggest thing for us is actually finding the solutions that's going to work for everyone, builders, architects, developers, whatever that may be. So cost versus value add. No hidden costs. We have a full scope of work, clearly defined, efficiencies gained, and definitely for our clients. That's a project we worked on in Kellyville. That's the one I was talking about, Tony and I did. It was a solid build right around. The builder needed to pick up some time on the job and also had some safety concerns with that. So we basically went in there, spoke to him and the builder developer, and we changed all the downstairs to AAC, upstairs to polystyrene, the Unitex and Render, as well as fins and hoods, and we increased the time and the costs. We saved him on the costs as well. So that was a great project for us. About 300 homes there. What our costs encompasses basically is we've got site inspections that we constantly do. Like Bryn said, trade liaison, management and logistics, quality assurance, compliance, WH&S, training and more. We are constantly investing in our trades. We're training them, we're making sure they're upskilled, we're making sure they do all the courses they need to, we're making sure they're licensed, and everything is basically, so it's a win-win for both, and that, you know, no one's worried. Our value, holistic service, we're on time, to budget, as I've mentioned a few times, high quality, stress-free. Yeah, we say we're the solid choice, and the reason we say that is because we do everything externally and cladding wise, like I said. So bricks and the solid choice in lightweight being foam and cladding. So yeah, thanks for listening to me anyway. Hope I didn't take up too much of your time, so thanks guys.